You are standing in a field that has been farmed continuously since 1847. Same family, same land, same crops rotating year after year. And in 17 years, not a single bag of fertilizer has ever been purchased, not one. I am in Holmes County, Ohio, on a 60-acre farm that produces more food per acre than the industrial farms surrounding it. And the soil is getting richer every single year, while the neighbor's soil is dying. The difference is not luck, it is not better weather, it is a system. A system the Amish never abandoned. A system the fertilizer industry spent 80 years making sure you would never hear about. What you are about to learn is the exact method Amish farmers use to turn dirt into living soil that feeds itself forever. No bags, no bills, no dependence on any company that can raise prices or cut supply. Stay with me until the end, because the last piece of this system, the one I found in an agricultural survey from 1886, is something I have never seen written down in any modern farming guide. And it is the reason their compost finishes in 6 weeks instead of 12 months. The first time I visited this farm, I asked the owner, a man named Samuel, where he kept his fertilizer. He looked at me like I had asked him where he kept his spaceship. He pointed at the ground and said one sentence: "The soil feeds itself." I thought he was being poetic. He was being literal. Modern agriculture operates on a simple assumption. Soil is dirt. Dirt is an inert medium that holds plants upright while you pour synthetic nutrients into it. When the nutrients run out, you buy more. That assumption generates $63 billion in global fertilizer sales every single year. The Amish rejected that assumption in 1847, and they have never gone back. Here is what they know that the rest of American agriculture was trained to forget. Soil is not dirt. Soil is alive. A single handful of healthy soil contains more living organisms than there are people on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, nematodes, protozoa, earthworms, and thousands of species we have not even named yet. Those organisms do not just live in the soil, they build the soil. They break down organic matter into nutrients. They pull nitrogen from the air and fix it into forms plants can use. They create structure that holds water and prevents erosion. They fight disease. They communicate with plant roots through chemical signals we are only beginning to understand. When you feed the organisms, they feed the plants. When you kill the organisms with synthetic chemicals, the soil becomes dirt, and dirt requires fertilizer, forever. The Amish system does not fight biology, it feeds biology. And once you understand how it works, the entire industrial agriculture model starts to look like an expensive waste of time. Let me walk you through the core system step by step, because the simplicity of it is what makes it so powerful. The rotation starts with a nitrogen-fixing cover crop. Clover, vetch, or field peas planted in late summer after the main crop is harvested. These plants do something no synthetic fertilizer can replicate. They pull nitrogen out of the air. 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, but plants cannot use it in gaseous form. Legumes have evolved a partnership with soil bacteria called rhizobia. The bacteria colonize the root nodules of the legume and convert atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia. The plant uses some of that nitrogen to grow. The rest stays in the roots and the nodules. When the cover crop is tilled under in spring, all of that captured nitrogen becomes available to the next crop. No bag, no truck, no invoice. The atmosphere supplied it for free. Penn State Extension documented this process in field trials that ran for 14 consecutive years. A single planting of red clover before corn added the equivalent of 80 to 120 pounds of nitrogen per acre. That is the same amount most commercial corn operations apply with synthetic urea. The difference is that the clover cost nothing and improved soil structure while it worked. The synthetic nitrogen cost $40 to $60 per acre, killed beneficial soil organisms, and leached into groundwater within 2 growing seasons. But nitrogen is only one piece of the equation. The Amish system builds complete soil fertility through a process most industrial farms abandoned in 1950: composting at scale. Here is where most people get composting wrong. They think of it as a way to dispose of kitchen scraps. a bin in the backyard that turns banana peels into garden amendment over the course of a year. The Amish do not compost to dispose of waste. They compost to manufacture soil, and they do it faster and more completely than anything taught in modern permaculture courses. A traditional compost pile, the kind recommended in every gardening book published in the last 30 years, takes 12 to 18 months to break down into finished humus. The Amish method produces finished compost in 6 weeks. 6 weeks! I did not believe it until I saw the process myself and read the explanation in an 1886 USDA agricultural survey of Mennonite and Amish settlements in Pennsylvania and Ohio. The difference comes down to 4 factors that industrial agriculture and the home gardening movement both ignore: carbon to nitrogen ratio, moisture content, oxygen availability, and temperature. Most compost piles fail because they are too dry, too wet, too compacted, or too cold. The Amish system controls all 4 variables from day one. They build the pile in layers: 6 inches of high carbon material, straw, dried corn stalks, shredded leaves, and 2 inches of high nitrogen material, fresh manure, kitchen scraps, green plant matter, then a thin dusting of finished compost from the previous batch, or a shovel of active soil. That finished compost or soil introduces billions of microorganisms that immediately begin breaking down the new material. It is an inoculant, the same principle as sourdough starter or yogurt culture. You are not waiting for decomposition to start randomly, you are seeding it. The pile is built to a height of 4 to 5 feet and a width of at least 4 feet. Smaller than that, and it will not generate enough internal heat. Larger than that, and oxygen cannot penetrate to the center. The moisture content is calibrated by feel. When you squeeze a handful of the mixed material, it should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Damp but not dripping. Too dry, and the microbes cannot function. Too wet, and the pile goes anaerobic, which kills the process and creates a stinking mess. Then comes the step that most modern composters skip entirely: aeration. Every 3 days, the pile is turned, completely turned. The outside material goes to the center material goes to the outside. Turning introduces oxygen, which the aerobic bacteria require to function at high speed. It also redistributes moisture and heat, preventing dry pockets and cold spots. With proper aeration, the internal temperature of the pile climbs to 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit within 48 hours. That heat is not applied externally. It is generated by the metabolism of billions of bacteria consuming organic matter and reproducing exponentially. At that temperature, weed seeds are killed, pathogens are destroyed, and decomposition happens at a rate that would be impossible at ambient temperature. After 6 weeks of turning every 3 days, the pile has transformed. What started as recognizable chunks of straw and manure has become dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling humus. No ammonia smell, no visible plant matter, just pure soil. The finished compost is spread on the fields before planting. It adds nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and trace minerals in forms that plants can access immediately. It also adds billions of living organisms that continue working in the soil long after the compost is applied. One application of finished compost supplies nutrients for 2 to 3 growing seasons. Synthetic fertilizer supplies nutrients for 1 season, and then it is gone. The difference in cost over a decade is staggering. The difference in soil health is unmeasurable. Now here is the part that stops most people cold when they hear it for the first time. The Amish do not just avoid buying fertilizer because they are self-sufficient. They avoid it because they watched what it did to the farms around them. In 1950, American agriculture shifted from manure-based soil building to synthetic nitrogen-based soil mining. The Green Revolution, they called it. New hybrid seeds that responded to high nitrogen with massive yields. Fertilizer companies sold the inputs. Farmers bought them. Yields exploded for a while. Then the soil started to die. Synthetic nitrogen feeds plants directly. It bypasses the soil food web entirely. The bacteria and fungi that used to break down organic matter and supply nutrients stop functioning because they are no longer needed. The earthworms leave because there is no organic matter to eat. The soil structure collapses because there are no organisms building it. The field becomes dirt. And dirt requires more fertilizer every single year to produce the same yield. By 1970, American farms were applying triple the nitrogen they used in 1950 to get the same results. In 1990, it was 5 times as much. The soil was not improving, it was becoming dependent. And dependency is not a side effect of the system. Dependency is the system. The fertilizer industry understood this from the beginning. Internal memos from the 1960s, now public through Freedom of Information requests, show that agrochemical companies knew synthetic nitrogen degraded soil biology. They knew it created a cycle of increasing dependence, and they funded university research programs and lobbied agricultural extension services to make sure farmers never learned the alternative. The suppression was not dramatic. There was no law banning compost. There was simply an institutional shift in what was taught, what was funded, and what was promoted. Ag schools stopped teaching composting. Extension agents stopped recommending cover crops. The USDA updated its guidelines to reflect synthetic input models. And within one generation, the knowledge disappeared from mainstream agriculture. The Amish kept it because they never plugged into that system in the first place. Now let me give you the final piece. The one that I found in that 1886 survey that I have never seen repeated in any modern guide. The Amish do not just compost farm waste. They compost everything, and I mean everything. Spoiled hay, manure, kitchen scraps, garden waste, bedding from animal stalls, sawdust from the workshop, ash from the wood stove, even wool scraps and feathers from butchering. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is burned. Nothing is hauled to a landfill. It all goes into the compost system. The survey noted that Amish farms in Lancaster County were producing 10 to 15 tons of finished compost per acre per year. That is an enormous quantity of soil amendment generated entirely from materials that would otherwise be considered waste. Spread across a 60-acre farm, that system eliminates the need for any external input, ever. The soil feeds itself because the farm feeds the soil. Compare that to the modern industrial model. A 60-acre corn and soybean operation in Iowa spends roughly $18,000 per year on synthetic fertilizer. Over 10 years, that is $180,000. Over 30 years, over $500,000. All of it flowing out of the farm and into the hands of agrochemical companies, none of it building soil, all of it creating dependence. The Amish farmer spends zero and his soil gets richer every year. That is not a lifestyle choice. That is an economic survival strategy that works. If you are gardening in a backyard or managing a small farm or just trying to grow better tomatoes, this system scales down perfectly. You do not need 60 acres. You need a compost pile, a cover crop, and the willingness to feed your soil instead of your plants. The biology does the rest. I want to know one thing from you. If you could eliminate your fertilizer cost completely and grow better food at the same time, what would stop you from starting a compost pile this weekend? Leave that answer in the comments because I read every one and the answers tell me what to cover next.